Right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So on the Andrew Marr show earlier today, he discussed the newspaper headlines, which of course nearly exclusively focus on the fake news story about the Boris row with his missus, but have now begun to shift onto questioning the neighbours' motives, which I did the moment I heard the first reports on it. Now, on the Andrew Marr show was the Yorkshire Post's Westminster correspondent Liz Bates, Ash Sarkar of the Ramoning left-wing media company Novara Media, and the Telegraph associate editor Camilla Tominey. Now, of course, the biased left-wing hag Ash Sarkar is not happy the focus has shifted and the politically motivated smear campaign is being called out. So let's check out the clip from the show.
Many thanks for that, Roger. And now to the front pages, bubbling and boiling with one story only. There's the front page of the Mail on Sunday. Bust up Boris, hit by shock poll blow, which is basically that people are not impressed by the latest story and are gathering around Jeremy Hunt as a potential Prime Minister, they say. The Sunday Express is as disobliging to Boris Johnson as that one was. Why won't Boris tell us what happened? That's relating, of course, to the hustings yesterday, where he dodged the questions about the Carrie Simons row. But Carrie Simons, in a more friendly way, has been speaking, or friends of hers have been speaking to The Sun and given her verdict. It's all a stitch-up by left-wing neighbours, and that is also the view taken by the Sunday Telegraph. Left-wing neighbours admit taping Boris row, and people are asking, what kind of country is it where you can't have a row without your neighbours taping it and calling the police? And there's the Sunday Times. Boris is a security risk. This is allegedly two cabinet ministers gossiping, saying that he will be blackmailed and there'll be further leaks to come out. And they've got a whole series of stories which we'll talk about inside that paper. Very, very interesting. And then finally, the Sunday Mirror. Boris row was so frightening, I had to call police, says the neighbour involved. So where are we going to start? We're going to start with that story. That is the only place to start.
Yeah, it's everything today is about kind of Boris backlash, and obviously we saw the story emerge in The Guardian on Friday night, and it was all about the row that Boris Johnson had with his girlfriend Carrie Simons, and the neighbours there had called the police and made a recording in their hallway, and then passed that to The Guardian. And now what we've seen over the weekend, and particularly all over the papers today, is the scrutiny has turned from Boris and his girlfriend to the neighbours that made the recording.
So it's gone from the story to the story about the story. And of course this is technology. Because of these mobile phones, anything can be recorded or filmed at any time.
Yeah, and so the newspapers are looking at who are these people, and I think trying to look more into what their motivation is. And the suggestion in some of the papers this morning is that their motivation might be political. That's certainly what's being hinted at in the Sunday Times. This is the way that they describe the neighbours. Their names are Tom Penn and Eve Lee. They are left-wing dramatists. There's some great descriptions of them in here. Lee is an enthusiastic Buddhist. In terms of like her playwriting career, she's getting some.
It all sounds exactly as if it was written by Jennifer Sanders out of Ab Fab. I mean,
it's quite
great social
silly.
Comedy in a way.
Yeah, and apparently she gave Boris Johnson the finger in the street. So the implication behind all of this is that
it's all a political stitch-up.
There's an ulterior motive here.
Ash.
I mean, I think that this coverage of the political views of the neighbours is actually weirdly McCarthyite. This idea that because they voted Labour, because they were pro-EU, because she gave the finger to Boris Johnson in the street, the way like 50% of Londoners, I think, would, that they shouldn't be trusted, and that their motivations for recording the row, the screaming, the smashing were malign, and that, you know, James Cleverly saying that the big element of the story is that they called the police at all. And the reason why I feel so strongly about this is because I think that this has got negative consequences beyond the Westminster pony show.
For other women who are perhaps shouting in a room and hoping that somebody's going to
Absolutely,
hear them.
Because having a row in which you shout and you say things you don't mean, that's a normal part of relationships. Screaming, get off me at midnight, hearing thuds, hearing smashing, those things aren't normal. Physical intimidation is not a normal part of relationships.
Yeah, we don't know that's what he was doing, of course.
Well, no, but from the recording we don't know whether that was Boris or not, but saying that that form of conflict and physical intimidation, no matter what side it's on, is not a normal part of relationships. And to see MPs and right-wing pundits just fall over themselves to normalise it, I think is incredibly irresponsible.
I'm not sure if it's normalisation. I think there's a bit of context put into how the recordings were made. There's a suggestion here from the guy, Tom, saying that his sole concern was the welfare and safety of my neighbours. And yet at the same time, we have friends of Carrie's here speaking to The Sun, saying at no point did she she fear for her safety? They had a row. Lots of couples have them. They questioned some of the behaviour of the neighbours, including posters being put up, anti-Boris, hate mail that they've received, the so-called two-fingered salute, which I believe the female protagonist in this, she tried to delete that from her Twitter feed. You know, I suppose there could be an argument that if anyone else had been affected by this, and if there'd been a recording of perhaps somebody on the left, you would have the likes of Hacktoff's Steve Coogan and Hugh Grant saying, hang on, isn't this a gross invasion of privacy?
So at the start, they show all except 2 papers that are anti-Boris, or at least printing anti-Boris articles. It would seem that the Boris derangement syndrome is a real thing in 2019. You hear Liz Bates explaining what I have said multiple times. These are left-wing EU spunk trumpets who called the police after recording an argument between Boris and Carrie in the hope of destroying his reputation. This is the most common tactic employed by these left-wing Ramonas in 2019. We also have to remember that as playwrights, they get a nice bonus from the EU budgets, so their political motivation is also a financial one. Liz does attempt to say that, but I think she is shut down before finishing by Andrew Marr. We then hear from the Ramonin shitweasel Ash Sarkar, who does her best to defend her fellow communists' politically motivated smear attempts now the scrutiny is on them. Complaining people think they should not have called the police, my response to that is calling the police is not even the issue. It's their neighbours' actions after the police have left. These 2 left-wing fuckpigs decided to sell the recording to the Guardian newspaper, even though the police said that nothing had happened and everyone was safe. That's why people are questioning them, because selling it to the papers proves it was a politically motivated attempt to destroy the man's reputation. This trollop sitting there defending them and attempting to infer that what happened with Boris and his missus is like a real domestic violence situation is disgraceful. This is another smear attempt by the Novara media hag to plant in the minds of the BBC viewers that Boris is a wife beater, and Andrew Marr does not even attempt to stop her, he actually encourages her. That's disgraceful on his part if you ask me. This spunk trumpet continues by putting out the unsubstantiated claim that Carrie was screaming at Boris to get off her, citing this recording that I still cannot find anywhere. Now what, do all the left-wing media pass it around to themselves but keep it from the public? I guess they can't show it as it likely debunks their own story. Now Camilla from The Telegraph does well to rubbish her claims about normalising attacking your missus with a word that is considered heresy to the left. Context. They hate context as it rubbishes their smear attempts. Of course, we all know the context. These neighbours do not want Brexit, they hate Boris and will do all they can to hinder his chances of becoming the Prime Minister, in the hope the Socialist Labour Party will cancel Brexit. When Camilla reads the claim from the neighbour's Tom Penn that he was frightened for his neighbour's safety, she should have pointed out you couldn't be that afraid for her safety as you took the time to record their argument before phoning the police. That's not fair in my opinion. I mean, let's be serious, he knew she was in no danger, as her friends have already stated in the Sun newspaper. The crazy leftist woman's attempt to delete an anti-Boris tweet because she knew it would be yet more evidence that this was a politically motivated attack on his character. So I'm going to end the video there. I can't believe this slimy shitweasel Ash Sarkar attempted to paint Boris with the same brush as a man who beats up his wife. She is a clear sufferer of Boris derangement syndrome, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and share the video as it helps the channel a lot, and I'll see you all in the next video.